Hello, fellow explorers. Welcome to another episode on the Walking Session podcast. Mazmila here. First and foremost, my apology for the long gap in between these. I was just going to take a breather in the last episode, and then that breather turned into a massive break. Granted, life happened, from injuries to things at home, but I think even more so a better reason to sort of go into the topic that I'm going into today. Today I want to talk about the balance between ambition and connection. And I thought it's a good time of the year to talk about it because I think a lot of people have started out the year with well-meaning goals and all the things they were going to do. I often watch people, some of you are kind enough to share what you're working on, whether it's at work or at home. And I am a little bit of a stickler for goal setting and how goal setting should be done. That's a whole nother podcast episode because I do feel like a lot of people do not do this the right way. They kind of look at their goals list and I'm like, well, that's not going to happen. But anyway, that's a whole nother episode. What I want to talk about, yes, it's that balance between ambition and connection. So to bring it back to me, because this podcast's about me, just joking, it's not. But to bring back to me and how I was recording these podcasts, I had all this ambition of wanting to show up every week and wanting to do X, Y, Z, but I didn't really work through that properly. I didn't commit to it properly, and I also was being a typical human where other things in life and other seasons got in the way. So, I guess here's what I'm trying to say with that. If you're an ambitious person, a really hard thing to accept is that some things might not go your way. Sometimes life will throw hurdles at you that you couldn't even predict, even if you tried. Like I mentioned, my husband, for example, broke his arm. That threw a lot of things up in got in the way. It just got in the way, okay? He's fine. He still might need more. He's fine. Overall, he's fine. We're still healing from it. It's been months. It's still happening. But overall, it's not, it's not as hard on the family as it was in those initial weeks when he first broke his arm. But those things are not something that I could have predicted. And my ambition to do certain things at work did have to take a little bit of a step back so I could do what I needed to do at home. But today in particular, I also want to talk about the connection, the ambition and connection, because sometimes ambitious people, and plenty of them I've studied, believe me, can pursue ambition at the cost of connection. So what I mean by that is if you're an athlete, for example, you might have the blinkers on and you might completely disregard seeing your friends and doing things with them in the pursuit of something greater in your sport. Or you might be a parent. This also happens. I know there's been seasons in my parenting life where long seasons, years, not just seasons, years, where sleep was non-existent. And therefore, a lot of things that are quote unquote fun just had to go for the pure solution of me getting by. So I had so little to give that seeing friends, going out and doing something creative or fun, I just didn't have that in the tank. I was like, I need to be at home with my children. I need to be at work, and everything else is probably not going to happen. Like, that's how minimal it was. And for me at that time, I prioritized my connection to my family over everything else because I had nothing more to give. And even that was hard. It wasn't a matter of I didn't like my friends, I didn't want to see them or talk to them. It was just hard. I just had nothing else to give. I had these children that I needed to take care of. And I was, like I said, running on fumes, and I wanted to look after my clients, and that's all I had to give. Happy to be out of that season. Life looks very different now. But I guess that is the first thing that I want to say. I think everybody needs to take a beat. Everybody needs to take a deep breath and just accept there's going to be certain circumstances, there's going to be certain seasons in your life where either of those things need to take a little bit of a step back. So, for example, with your ambition, it might be a little bit of a matter of, well, normally I'm functioning at, this being a 90% priority. Now it's going to have to drop to 70 or 30 or 10. Whatever the season is. And on the flip side also then, at times making the hard call of, okay, so I'm really ambitious about my work right now, but maybe you still want to see your friends, that connection with them, let's just go with the friendship stuff, is really important, but you're unable to commit to a big night out and drinking and everything else, so you might just see them for dinner because your ambition has taken a little bit of priority over that. That just is not something that you need. And you can flip and reverse this in every way, shape or form. But I guess my first point about this is just accepting that it's not always going to look the same and that it's okay for it to change and that you're the only person that's in the driver's seat. And obviously you're not going to make decisions in any of these areas, whether it's the connection bit, whether it's the ambition bit, where it's just continuously the same thing long term at the risk of losing your business, at the risk of losing your friendships, at the risk of using your craft or whatever it is that you're working on. You might be really ambitious. And so, for example, let's go with the business world. You might be getting to a point where things are getting exactly where you wanted them to be a year or two ago. You've been working on moving your business or your career at work into a direction where you're super busy in terms of higher responsibilities, higher tasks. So you can't sort of then go, oh, what really looks good to me now, and it will, is just getting wasted, getting drunk, going away and forgetting about work. That definitely will feel like a nice out. And if it does, remember that's your flight, right? Remember we talk about stress and we talk about our body doing fight, flight, freeze and fawn. There's 2 new ones. They're not really new. There's extra ones, but the fight or flight are the most common. So just always remember, if you're in a situation at home or at work where you're like, ugh, I just want to get away and forget, that's your flight kicking in. That's your body saying you're under too much stress here. And that's a time to sit down and reflect what a healthier way is to cope with your stress levels rather than getting wasted and escaping, just doing escapism. So there's that. So accepting that it's always going to be different. The other thing that's really important for an ambitious person that also wants to stay connected to their loved ones is just also knowing that it doesn't have to be either or. It doesn't have to be I have to lose and cut out everyone around me if I want to have a good career or whatever. It doesn't have to be that way. It's that black and white thinking is unhealthy. And I think a lot of times it happens because there is some method to the madness, I suppose, because realistically, if you cut out every single quote unquote distraction from your life and you dedicate 12 to 14 hours to your work, you are going to see some results in your work. But what we're completely neglecting here is that you're also going to be probably unhappy and unhealthy, and you're long term that does not have sustainability. So I guess the second thing to do, if you're somebody that wants both, is just like really getting clear on why both of those things are important to you. So going, okay, well, what is this? Like, I want to honor this ambitious part of me. That's just who I am. You don't even have to have a reason as to why. You might be able to go, okay, I grew up this way and therefore I want this kind of life. Or, but for some of us, honestly, within me, I've always been driven and ambitious, and it's not like a burden. I know sometimes people say that, I've had comments, I've heard people just speak about it in that sense of, it might be nice to take the foot off the pedal sometimes and not feel like you have to be ambitious or striving, is that the word, all the time? And yep, that probably sounds like a logical thing, but for me, being ambitious coincides with creating and being creative. So I'm not sure what me being ambitious looks like to the outside world. Maybe when I do whinge about being tired or things being hard, they link that to me being ambitious, maybe. But usually that's not what it is. When I'm actually left in my craft and to create and do what I need to do, that's not what the ambition feels like. It feels like a flow. It actually energizes me. It's beautiful. What happens to me, like many people in life, is that, like I said, those things that life just is lifing and things get in the way, and that's really hard. The switching of focus, the stopping and starting, that's hard when you're ambitious because you want to do the gung-ho thing and you can't. Life's life. So I guess for me, or for anyone else listening, I think sometimes it's important to define Why is growth important to you? Why is ambition important to you? What does it make you feel? What is it about that? I think a lot of athletes can relate to this. I've sat with many who have come to an end of a career and have really, really struggled. And to be fair, the ones that have pursued other things, just not probably in the same, I want to say like just as passionately, but if you're a professional athlete or professional in any kind of way, we do know that there's a sustainability issue with that you can only go hard for so long, etc., that there are other things in the way. But if you can learn from that and passionately design a life for yourself that, not perfectly, remember, passionately, that you flow through, and you can get stuck into, I do feel like it's a personality type, somebody that enjoys growth and that wants to see growth in their life. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. And I think they're the people, to be fair, that also when things don't go their way, they take a beat, they see it, and at times that, you do feel let down and you feel like, Jesus, I've invested all this time and effort into a certain project, and it can sort of get you down, but it doesn't get you down forever, because you can also see the lessons in that. You can also see what was good about it and what you learned and how you can do things different. I think it's also beautiful in the same way. And then on the flip side, I guess it's also important, while you're putting down your whys as to why ambition in life and growth in life is important to you, it's also nice to sit down and think about why connection is the same, because what's one without the other, right? You know that you can have one pursuit with the other at the cost of your family, at the cost of being connected to your kids. And then you sort of, say you work long hours all the days, 7 days a week. When you come home, you're a stranger in your home, and that also doesn't feel good. Maybe. I'm assuming, right? So for someone like myself, connection is just important as my ambition. So I also want to make room for both. And what that sometimes means is that Maz's ambition before kids meant that I could dedicate a lot more time, for example, or Maz's single ambition looked very different and things could happen much quicker than what they happen when I'm honouring and nurturing these connections with my children and my husband. But I'm okay with that, right? Because that's the way I want it. I don't want one without the other. And like I said, the people that love me know that one will be on hold at times, but it's never long term. So when I say, like, I might have a quote unquote hectic situation at work, that might be a month, but I'm going to nurture my family by going away or giving them more one-on-one time after that to bounce back, and then there might be a long gap between those. So it's finding, and that's just what works for me. It's about finding the groove for yourself. What works for you? What is it? What makes you feel connected? And we all need different levels of these. Like, there might be people that will say, let me wind it back. I really enjoy spending the morning with my family. That's like really important to me. And if I can have it my way, most days I will not kick off work until that 9:30 mark. Most days. I want to be there in the mornings. I want to be there helping get my kids off to school. I like to have a chat in the morning with my husband. That's important to me. Is that always perfectly happening 7 days a week? No. Is it happening most days of the week? Yes. And that's the balance, or that's what works for me. And I'm not going to argue that. I'm not going to go against it or negate it, because I'm really clear as to why that's important to me. And any time that suffers, I know that there's a disconnect and I just don't feel right in my body. Just that, right? So number one, we've said embrace the seasons and know that there's going to be a bit of back and forth in lifing. Number two is get really, really clear on your why around these, so that you get your own balance or your own rhythm right. And what is the number three? Number three between ambition and connection is accepting that you're not the only factor in the ambition and connection piece. So it means that you could be doing all of this really well, really, really well, and nothing's happening. So you could be like, I'm giving everything 100%, but maybe your kids are going through a setback at the moment. They're really struggling with their own stuff and they don't want to connect with you because they're teenagers and they don't give a crap about your mornings with them because they're in their own worlds, right? Or the same could happen with your partner, because you might be giving it 100% and you want to have a cup of tea with them and they're like, I don't. I've got heaps of work to do. Get out of here, right? Within your work or your career or your business, you might be giving it 100%, but the opportunities might not be there, or it's just not happening yet. So it's also, I guess, number 3 is accepting that while you might focus on what you're in control of, you ain't the only factor or the only, what's the word? Like, if it was as easy and just doing everything perfectly on our own, then everyone out there would be having these amazing, perfect lives. But that's not it, right? Your energy is going to flow even though you do all the right things and take all the vitamins and do all the exercise. Like, everything still changes. So I know this is hard to hear because you're probably a little bit of a perfectionist since you clicked on this podcast and it has the word ambition in it. It's accepting that things are never going to be perfect. Yeah? So it's leaving a little bit of room for even though still. And I think back to my number point 2, I think this is why it's really, really important to go back to your why and what you embrace about the ambitious. Why is it still important to ambitious to you? Why is it still important to have a connection with your loved ones? So that when these moments happen or things are, you're like, I'm doing it all. Like, you're not doing it all because you just want to be perfect. You're doing it all because it's important to you. So sometimes, when you enjoy the process of being ambitious, when you enjoy the process of connecting with people, there will be times where that's not reciprocated and the reward's not coming and the results are not coming. But because you enjoy the process of it, you're not just going to give up and go, stuff everyone. I'm not going to bother talking to my partner anymore. And these kids, they can sort themselves out. You're not going to do that because you're the one that values those things and you're doing them because you value them, not because you're waiting for some kind of reward and outcome and return, if that makes sense. Well, if any of this makes sense to you, let me know. I've also... please like the podcast. I a little bit hate when people say that at the end, but it does make sense because that's the only way that the word gets out and other people get to listen to it. So please do that. The other thing I wanted to say is, I think in the previous podcasts to this one, I've talked about a little low fee membership, blah, 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 blah. I've decided I'm going to do that a little bit different. What's in the membership as of now is for free. So what I want to do is get you to have a little bit of a full experience of the podcast. And I do want to encourage you to do a little bit of self-help and self-healing. So I'm going to create that space for free. There may or may not be courses that I'll work on along the way as I feel inspired to. That are probably going to come at a cost, or definitely will come at a cost. But I actually want to already have some things in there so you get a vibe or feel for. You can start doing some work in between those seasons, in between me creating different bits and pieces. So I'll chuck that link in the bio, and you can go and check it out. I think that's it. Keep sending me questions. I'm on both the Instagram handles, on my private one, which is Marietta Miller, but also the walking session one. So if there's a topic in particular that you want to learn about, if there's a question or case study that you want to send through, please feel free to do that. But anyway, I'm going to let you go. Peace out. I hope that helped, and I'll catch you next time. Bye.